talk about legalism. Because in today's story, we had Jesus preaching in the synagogue on the Sabbath. So it would have been our equivalent like on a Sunday morning service. And it was the Jewish practice that you weren't supposed to do work on the Sabbath. And they're really big about that, about not doing work and coming up with a lot of different rules of what qualifies as work and what you can do to get around it. And so at this time, they considered healing to be a work, and so Jesus was working on the Sabbath and breaking the Sabbath rule. And the reason the Jews keep the Sabbath is because it comes right from the book of Genesis, right? You had God created in 6 days, and on the 7th day, he what? He rested, right? And so, just as God rested, man was also supposed to take a rest as well. There's also something really, very much an element of kind of sort of like this social justice element in resting on the Sabbath, and that is to give your animals, the land, your workers, and people a day off, right? I mean, they even do that they do that in Bergen County, right? We have the blue laws, right, on Sunday, which all of these retail workers really like because they actually get 1 day off, right? And people who live in Bergen County like it because they get 1 day where there's not crazy traffic, right? So it's a good thing, right, to have a little bit of a break and to like stop for once in your week and just rest. So it's a good thing on a number of levels, personal and socially. But rules are very dangerous. They're also absolutely necessary. In this case, Jesus did something that broke the rule, but kept the spirit and met the purpose of the Sabbath day. Now what happens with legalism is that we form something I want to call certainty addiction. Right? And that is at the root of all legalism. Right? And legalism is this fixation on the rules, right? Fixation on external things, on external markers to the exclusion of internal things. Fixation on the way you do something to the exclusion of what your results are or what the purpose is. And you see, this is one of the problems with legalism is that it renders you blind. And you forget what the whole point of the rule is. I had a friend who used to work at a coffee shop. He was my friend's seminary. And he lives in a neighborhood where there are a lot of Orthodox Jews, right? And so they keep the Sabbath, and he would always see these funny things happen, right? Like, you can't pay for stuff on the Sabbath, right? Because that's like a work, right? So they would come up with all these elaborate ways to get around the rule. So one time he was in the coffee shop, and this man came in, he has, hat on and everything, and he goes to pay for the coffee, but he can't pay for it, right? Because that exchange is breaking the Sabbath. So he has the money in the top of his hat, and he bends down and says, "Good day." The money falls out of his hat onto the counter, and now is the exact change, so now he can give him the coffee, right? See, so, I mean, it's funny, right? But that is an example of what can happen if you get too obsessed with the rules and you forget what their purpose is, right? Now, how can we do that as Orthodox, right? We're Orthodox Christians. We have a whole lot of rules and practices. We have a whole lot of external things, right? One solution certain Protestants take, like say maybe like Quakers or certain people from kind of maybe like Baptist backgrounds or these groups, they what? They don't have hardly any externals, right? No icons. We're not going to do. We're not going to have a liturgical structure to what we do, right? There's going to be no fasting. We're going to, no day is holier than another day, and so you strip out all these rules. Well, that's one way to do it. But the thing is, there's a better way, and that is to use rules, right, as tools. Right? Because the keeping of the rule itself is not the good thing. Right? That's not the virtue. Right? So Jesus didn't come so people could keep rules better. Right? He didn't come to give you more rules. Right? What did he come to do? He came to change you. Right? See, because the gospel is not interested. Right? The gospel is not interested in behavior modification. to just make you act a certain way. That's not the point, right? The point is to change you. And when you change, everything else that comes out of you changes as well. And rules are simply a tool, right, to enact that change. You can think that rules are kind of like, I remember when I was in Italy, it was in Florence. There's the, what's the place where the David is, Ben? What's the name of it? The Academia. And as you walk up to the David, right, Michelangelo's David, there's all these other carvings that he did of, they're half carved, right? People kind of half coming out of stone, right? And so they're kind of half undone. And they're kind of a great symbol of kind of the process of becoming, right? Of someone forming themselves, of being unformed. And so you can think of your life very much like a statue that's being carved. And you're very much like those statues of Michelangelo, which are half carved along the galley as you walk to the David, right? Which is very arguably the most perfect sculpture ever, right? And along the way, as you get to the most perfect sculpture ever, you have all these undone sculptures, which aren't finished. That's a great example of our own lives. And so you can think of rules, they're like the chisel and the hammer. You need them, right? You need them to carve out your character. But if you pound too hard or you get too obsessed about things, you're going to crack and you're going to break. So it's how you use that tool. Now, what today's gospel message shows is that these rulers of the synagogue were so fixated and obsessed about their rule on the Sabbath day, they forgot the whole point of the Sabbath day, right? Of that rule. And the whole point of their Jewish faith. So that when a woman who was bowed down, right, who was bent over for 18 years, is healed, the first thing they do, instead of rejoicing or giving praise to God or feeling gratitude on behalf of that person, right, what do? They immediately slip into judgment, right? A judgment mode. And you see, this reflects a certain attitude which I believe is very toxic. And that if you are infected by legalism and certainty addiction, you inevitably become a very ungrateful person and a very judgmental person. You see, because we love rules, right? Sometimes when people they come talk to me about, Father, what should I do for fasting, And I won't give people these hard universal rules for everybody. I try to give them guidance and advice and talk to them about what they should do. And it's too ambiguous. People don't like it, right? You know what people want? They want me to say, do this and this on this day. That's the rule. Why is that? Because we hate ambiguity, we hate uncertainty, and rules are safe. Because with a rule, you can keep it, you can feel self-satisfied, and you can feel like you have control on your life. The problem with that is that's an idol. It's a false security. Rules are not there for us to worship. They're there for us to use to become more like the God whom we worship. And so we have to be careful about this. At the heart of legalism, like I said, is this certainty addiction. We're addicted to things being certain and absolute and firm and unquestionable and black and white. You know where we see this a lot, and we'll see it in the coming year a lot, is in the election season, in politics, right? Everyone is so certain of their ideological position, right? And they're so convinced the other side is wrong, right? Because what? We love certainty. We like to feel certain, feel safe. So here are some examples that we can watch out for. One, we can look at our own church. Churches, we can suffer from certainty addiction. And it's not just rules, it's having things a certain way, right? We have a certain idea of how church should be, of how we want it to be, of how we want it to look, right? What kind of music we want to hear, of what kind of food we want to have down at coffee, whatever, right? Or we have pet peeves, things that bother us or bug us that we want a certain way. Part of that is a little bit of we just want things one way, our way, so we can feel safe, right? There's a challenge in the church. If all of a sudden we had 5 or 6 new families come into the church, you know what's going to happen? They're going to change the church. That happens. We're a small church, right? It would change the way it would feel and look. It's possible that people could come in and could change, the character of our church could change. Its language or ethnicity could change, right? This happens sometimes. And what often happens is fights break out in churches. When like a bunch of new people come in, this happens sometimes. Right? Like I know this one Albanian church up near Boston where there's a bunch of old school Albanians, right, who came before communism and a bunch who came afterwards. And man, do they fight, right? Because all these new Albanians came in and changed our church, right? They're all Albanians, and they can't really get along very well. So we have to be on our guard, even in our own church, that we don't have a certain sort of addiction to things being one specific way, right? Also in our relationships, right? We set up expectations on people of how they should act, of who they should be, of how we want, what we want from them, right? Of how, like, we have expectations of what a son should be like, right? Or what a spouse should be like. Or what, our parent should be like. Or what another parishioner should act. They're not acting the way a good parishioner is supposed to act, right? And that might be the case. But the problem is, when we get fixated on rules, on very narrow expectations of how we think our lives should be or how other people should live their lives, what inevitably happens is we stop focusing on working on our own shortcomings and we fixate on the shortcomings of other people. The last thing I would want you to consider is when you look at other people, sometimes we judge other people by these rules that we've set up. And we look at the way that they live their life and we ignore the results of it. If you look in the Old Testament, we had the Bible study, and we looked at the book of Judges, and there were all these different characters, right? Like, there was Gideon, Samson, Jephthah, Ruth, Deborah, and all of these characters were very flawed, right? I call them like the holy sinners, because all of them had some incredible moral failing, and yet they excelled in certain virtues. And when sometimes you would look at them and you would not expect to find somebody who was God's chosen, right? Or who was the one who God would use to deliver his people. And we have to be careful that we don't do the same thing. In the book of Samuel, when the prophet Samuel goes to find the next king after King Saul, he goes to Jesse, who is the father of King David, before he's a king. He's just a lowly shepherd boy. And Jesse lines up all of his nice, strapping, strong-looking sons, right? Except David, who's the runt, who's out in the field. And Samuel comes up to each one, examines them, and says, the one I'm looking for isn't here. Are these all the sons you have? He says, well, there's David who's out in the field, right? So he brings David in finally at the beckoning of Samuel and examines him and decides that he is the one who's to be the next king. And he anoints him right there. And then in the book of Samuel, it says, men judge by the external things, but God sees the heart. And that is like a theme that runs throughout the Holy Scriptures. And that is the people who are the closest to God, who are God's chosen, who are virtuous and good, are often not who you expect. They're unlikely. And do you know who the best example of this is? Jesus. He's the unlikely Messiah. He's the impossible God. Because he doesn't conform to the rules that we have for how God should act, for how the Messiah should act, for who God should be. So we must be very careful that our rules don't blind us to the virtue and goodness in other people, that they don't distract us from working on ourselves and instead judging other people. And that by becoming addicted to them, we miss the whole point of them, of our fasting and how we should live. So, like the rulers of the synagogue, we should hear the same word from Jesus and also be a little ashamed of ourselves from time to time if we fall into the trap of legalism. And instead, we should make sure that we're free enough that when we see a miracle of God happen, when we see something good happen to somebody else, that we're able to rejoice with them and not judge them. Glory to Jesus Christ.
Glory to God.